I was driving past the industrial district the other day, and I saw one of those uh, truly massive construction sites. You know the kind?
Oh, yeah.
It looks like a small city just sprouted out of the mud.
Oh,
Miles of silver pipe, towers scraping the clouds, thousands of people in high-vis vests scurrying around like ants.
it is a sight to behold. We call those mega projects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, you see the physical engineering, you see the cranes, the concrete, the sweat. But today, we're doing something a little different.
Okay.
We're going to look at the invisible infrastructure, the thing that actually stops that billion-dollar chaos from collapsing into total anarchy.
That is a great way to frame it because beneath the steel and the mud, there is a layer of architecture that's made, well, entirely of words. It's the contract.
And we have our hands on the DNA of one of these projects. We're looking at two documents that usually, they never see the light of day.
Okay.
One is called E1.0 Scope of Work,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is E1.1 Scope Split List.
These are effectively the employer requirements. And just to be clear, in this context, the employer isn't a boss hiring an employee. It's the client, a massive oil company or a chemical manufacturer hiring a contractor to build their new facility.
My first thought when I opened these files was just intimidation.
Yeah.
This is not a handshake deal. This is the language of absolute obligation. It feels heavy.
It has to be. You have to remember, we aren't talking about building a garden shed or renovating a kitchen. We are talking about highly volatile, complex environments involving billions of dollars.
Right.
The mission of these documents isn't just to say, build this factory.
Right.
It is to close every single loophole where a contractor could possibly say, not my job.
And that is exactly what I want to decode today. How does a client ensure a contractor delivers exactly what is needed without any excuses?
Yeah.
Because looking at section 1.2, titled Scope of Work General, the client comes out swinging.
They certainly do.
It says the contractor must supply, and I'm reading this verbatim, all labor, supervision, permanent, temporary, and consumable goods, computer equipment, and each and every item of expense necessary.
Wow.
It feels like they're responsible for the entire universe of the project.
That is the catch-all. In the industry, we often refer to this as the works. The strategy here is to cast a net so wide that nothing slips through.
So even if something's not on the list.
Think about it. If the client lists 9,000 items they need, but forgets item 9001, let's say, the specific bolts to hold a ladder to a wall, section 1.2, is the legal safety net.
So the client doesn't even have to list the bolts.
No. Because of this clause, they can simply say, you are the builder, you need bolts to finish the work, supply them. It shifts the burden of memory from the client to the builder.
That seems incredibly aggressive, though. Look at section 1.5, interpretation. I found this part almost funny in a dark way. It admits the descriptions in the document are brief and not exhaustive.
Right.
But then it immediately says, no claim entitlement shall be considered on the grounds of defective or incomplete description. Basically, we might have described this badly, but you can't ask for more money to fix our bad description. How is that even legal?
Fairness isn't really the metric here. Commercial certainty is. The document explicitly states it is prepared on the basis that the contractor is experienced. That word experienced is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
The expert trap.
Precisely. The logic holds up in court like this. You are a professional, world-class construction company. If the blueprints show a giant pump, but no power cable to plug it in, an amateur might miss that. But an experienced contractor knows pumps need electricity.
So you have to connect the dots yourself.
You do. So if you sign the contract, you are agreeing to supply the cable even if we didn't draw it.
So you absolutely cannot play dumb.
You absolutely cannot play dumb.
That brings us to the FEED section, front-end engineering design. Section 1.4. So let's set the scene. The FEED is the design work done before this contractor arrives, usually by a totally different company, right?
Correct. It's the preliminary blueprint.
So if I'm the new contractor and I'm looking at these designs, Section 1.4 says I am bound by the figures. But if there's a mistake in that design, something missing, it is for the account of contractor.
It is a harsh reality. Imagine buying a complicated Lego set, maybe the Millennium Falcon,
Okay.
but the instructions are missing page 5. You call the Lego store and they say, well, you're a master builder, figure it out. Oh, and if you need extra bricks to make it work, you have to buy them yourself.
That is a terrifying prospect for a bidder. You're pricing a job where you technically don't know the full extent of the errors you're about to inherit. Why would anyone sign that?
Because the contracts are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But this is why the smartest contractors have huge teams that do nothing but analyze the feed before they sign. They're looking for those missing bricks so they can price them in.
Now, assuming they sign the deal, we move into Section 3. This is the real meat of the document. It breaks the job down into 25 distinct elements.
It does.
And what surprised me is that actual construction, welding and hammering, doesn't even show up until item number 11.
That is a key insight for anyone trying to understand modern engineering. In a mega project, the physical welding and pouring of concrete is just one department. The first 10 items are almost entirely about information and control.
It feels like the client is saying, I don't just trust you to build it. I need you to prove how you are building it.
Exactly. Look at Section 3.2, Schedule Management. They don't just ask for a deadline. They specify a detailed program, P6.
I saw that. P6. Is that just a fancy calendar app or something?
No, if only. Primavera P6 is the gold standard database for scheduling. It's not a calendar, it's a logic engine.
A logic engine.
A project might have 20,000 distinct activities. Pour concrete foundation is linked to wait for cure, which is linked to install pump. P6 calculates the critical path. If the concrete truck is 2 days late, P6 tells you exactly how that delays the painting crew 3 months from now.
So they're demanding a simulation of the future, basically.
Yes. And if you don't feed that beast correctly, the project falls apart.
And that theme of data runs through everything. Section 3.5 talks about the Project Information Management System, or PIMS. And later, sections 3.16 and 3.17 cover information and document management. It seems like the data is almost as heavy as the steel.
In the last 20 years, that has become literally true. We call it the digital twin.
The digital twin.
When the contractor hands over the keys to the physical plant, they also have to hand over a pristine digital model of the plant. Every valve, every wire, every serial number needs to be in that system.
Why does the client care so much about the file management?
Because once the contractor leaves, the operators need that data to run the plant for the next 30 years. If a pipe bursts in 2035, they need to look up exactly what grade of steel it is within minutes. If the data is bad, the plant is unmanageable. The data is an asset.
So it's not just build a factory, it's build a factory and a server farm to run it.
Essentially. And notice how almost every section starts with the requirement for skilled human resources. You need IT experts, data controllers, and document specialists just to fulfill the contract.
It's a massive ecosystem. And speaking of ecosystems, we have to talk about the environment outside the fence. Section 3.7, Stakeholder Management, and 3.8, HSE, Health, Safety, and Environment.
This is about the social license to operate. You aren't building in a vacuum. You have local villages, government inspectors, environmental agencies. The contractor is the face of the project to all these people.
Okay.
If a truck driver runs a red light in the local town, the project director hears about it.
So the contractor is also the PR firm and the police force. Now, I want to talk about the things the contractor doesn't buy, but still has to deal with. These sections on other parties really confuse me. Section 3.19, Free Issue Items.
Ah, the FIMS.
This is when the employer says, I've already bought this giant turbine. Here you go. But the scope says the contractor is responsible for transportation, handling, and integration. So if I'm the contractor, I didn't choose this turbine, I didn't buy it. But if I drop it, I pay for it.
Usually, yes. Once it crosses the threshold into your care, custody, and control, you own the risk. It prevents a contractor from blaming delays on the client's materials.
It's like, think of it like taking your car to a mechanic, but you bring your own spare parts you bought on eBay.
Okay,
The
right.
mechanic might agree to install them, but if he drops that part on the floor and breaks it, do you think you should pay for it? In this contract, the answer is yes. And if that part turns out to be the wrong size, the contractor is often responsible for making it fit anyway. It sounds like a headache. And then there's Section 3.2, Nominated Subcontractors. This feels like a forced marriage.
That is a very apt description.
The employer says you must use this specific electrical company. But then the contract says the main contractor has to manage, coordinate, and integrate them.
Right.
So I'm the general contractor. The client forces me to hire Bob's Electric. Bob shows up late. Bob does a bad job. But the client yells at me.
Exactly. The client wants control over the choice. Maybe Bob's Electric has special technology they want, but they want the main contractor to hold the liability.
Oh, you're stuck.
It puts the main contractor in a tough spot because they can't easily fire Bob if the client loves him, but they have to pay for Bob's mistakes.
It sounds exhausting. With all these overlapping responsibilities, employer, contractor, subcontractor, How do they actually know where one person's job ends and the next begins?
That is why we have the second document, E1.1, the scope split list.
The matrix.
It really is a matrix. It's a giant spreadsheet designed to kill the sentence. I thought you were doing that.
I was looking at the jargon in this list. Sections 2.3 and 2.4 mentioned IBL and OBL, inside battery limit and outside battery limit. Can you explain what a battery limit is in the real world?
It's a jurisdictional boundary, often a physical fence or a road. Imagine the inside battery limit, IBL, as the heart of the factory, the complex chemical reactor. That requires super specialized high alloy welding.
Okay, the high-tech stuff.
Right. And the outside battery limit, OBL, is the support stuff. Water tanks, roads, warehouses, the cafeteria. You often have two different main contractors for these, one high-tech firm for the IBL and a cheaper civil engineering firm for the OBL.
And the scope split defines where they meet.
Exactly. Which brings us to section 2.5, tie-ins.
Which you said is the most dangerous part of the job.
It is, by far.
Why is that? It's just connecting two pipes, isn't it?
Yeah, but usually one of those pipes is live. It might be connected to an operating plant next door. It could be full of high-pressure steam, acid, or explosive gas. The scope split has to be laser precise here. Who strips the insulation? Who tests the air for gas leaks? Who strikes the arc for the first weld?
I see.
If there is ambiguity at a tie-in point, if both contractors think the other guy turned off the gas, people die. It's that simple.
So the scope split isn't just paperwork, it's a safety protocol.
Absolutely.
Let's zoom out to the timeline. We've talked about the what and the who, now the when. Section 4 outlines the life cycle. And I was surprised that in this world, done doesn't just mean done.
No, finish is a very relative concept in engineering. You have to prove it in stages.
So section 4.3.1 is construction completion. What's that?
That's the physical build. It looks like a factory. The cable is pulled. The pipe is bolted. But the wires are dead. The pipe is dry. We verify this with check sheets. It's basically a static sculpture of a plant.
Okay. Then we step up to mechanical completion in 4.3.3.
This includes pre-commissioning. Now we are cleaning the pipes, flushing them with water or air at high speed to blow out any welding debris. We are energizing the control loops to see if the valves open and close when we click a mouse.
But no chemicals yet.
No. We're verifying the machine works, but it's not processing anything.
That happens at RFSU, ready for startup, section 4.3.6.
The big milestone. The safety systems are active, the fire suppression is on, the utilities are humming, the plant is holding its breath, waiting for the feedstock, the gas or oil or chemical it's designed to process.
And this is where the contract offers a choose-your-own-adventure. Section 4.3.7 discusses startup, and there are two choices, option A and option B.
And this choice changes the financial risk profile of the entire project.
Option A is labeled default. It says the employer leads the startup and the contractor simply assists.
That is the traditional route. The client takes the keys, they bring in their own operations team, they press the button. If a pump vibrates, they point at the contractor and say, fix that. But the client is the captain of the ship.
But look at option B. It says the contractor leads startup. They are responsible for integrated facility reliability.
That is a massive transfer of risk. Under option B, the contractor isn't just a builder anymore. They are a temporary operator. They have to prove the plant doesn't just turn on, but that it runs reliably.
That sounds incredibly risky for a construction company. I mean, they are factory operators.
They aren't. So if they sign up for option B, they have to hire a specialized commissioning team. And imagine the nightmare scenario. The plant starts, but it keeps tripping. It shuts down every 4 hours.
Oh, no.
Under option A, that might be the client's problem to troubleshoot. Under option B, the contractor can't leave, they can't invoice for the final payment, they are stuck there burning cash until they get it stable.
So option B could literally bankrupt a contractor if the design is tricky.
It happens.
And even if they get it running, they aren't done. Section 4.2 covers performance testing. This was another layer I didn't expect.
Right. Just because the plant runs doesn't mean it's doing its job. The performance test is usually a 72-hour continuous run where they measure the output. Is the chemical 99.9% pure? Is it producing 100 tons per hour?
And if it only produces 90 tons?
The contractor has to fix it. Or they have to pay liquidated damages. Basically, a massive fine for every ton that is missing. This is the final exam. You don't graduate until you pass this test.
And even after they pass and hand it over, they aren't really free, are they? The timeline image shows a long bar called defects notification period.
The warranty period, usually 12 to 24 months. If a valve leaks 6 months after the opening party, the contractor has to come back and fix it.
But there was one section that seemed to extend this responsibility practically forever. Section 3.21, Operations and Maintenance. It says the contractor has to arrange long-term services agreements, or LTSAs.
This is fascinating. The client is asking the contractor to negotiate the maintenance contracts for the future. Say you installed a massive gas turbine from Siemens or GE. The client wants the contractor to set up the 10-year service deal with that vendor.
So the contractor is essentially setting the operational budget for the next decade.
Yes. They are buying the car, but they're also signing the insurance papers and the mechanic's service plan on behalf of the owner. It requires the contractor to think like an owner, not just a builder.
Looking at this holistic picture, we started by calling this a scope of work, but it feels more like a scope of anxiety.
It is a risk management machine. That's the best way to view it. These documents attempt to digitize, codify, and regulate every single human interaction that will happen on a job site for 4 years. It tries to remove the element of trust and replace it with obligation.
And yet, despite all this digital control, PIM systems, and legal matrices, I keep seeing one phrase popping up from Section 3.1 all the way to 3.23. The first requirement is always A, skilled, qualified, and experienced human resources.
That is the great irony. You can write the tightest contract in the world. You can define completion in 5 different ways. You can have a matrix for every bolt. But ultimately, the document demands skilled humans. If the person managing the tie-in doesn't know what they're doing, or if the scheduler doesn't understand the logic in P6, the contract can't save you.
It relies on people to enforce the rules that manage the people.
It always does.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We talked about that catch-all clause, the one that says even if the client forgot to lift a task, the contractor has to do it.
The experienced contractor clause, yeah.
Does that clause actually make clients lazy? I mean, does it encourage them to write sloppy requirements because they know the catch-all will save them? Or does it force the contractor to become a paranoid detective?
I think in the short term, it might make clients feel safe to be vague. But a vague scope always leads to arguments, no matter what the contract says. The smartest employers write detailed scopes because they want the building, not the lawsuit.
And for the contractor?
For the contractor, it forces them to be paranoid. And in this business, paranoia is a survival skill.
Paranoia is a survival skill. I think I'll get that printed on a t-shirt for my next performance review.
You probably should.
For everyone listening, take a look at your own scopes at work this week. Where are your battery limits? Who is responsible for the tie-ins between your team and the next? You might find you're operating under a scope split list you didn't even know existed. Thanks for diving in with us.
If you're interested in the templates, please visit our shop. The link is in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see next time.